This roundtable is about the role of women leadership in changing the organization. That word is always very complicated to me. And to help us in this quest, I have with me 4 eminent women leaders. Perhaps we have Professor Laxo from Tampere University, and the ones that met yesterday, we have realized that Tampere is coming to be the university and the place inside this organization. So we are very, very proud to have so many women leaders from Finland. But then we keep on the north, and we have Professor Wiberg. I am sorry if my pronunciation of your names are not good. So, I forgot to mention that Professor Laxo is a political scientist. So it's quite adequate to have among us somebody that knows about strategy, not only from practice, but also from theory, which is always very comforting. Then we have Professor Wiberg, and Professor Wiberg is a linguist. And Italian is her subject, and she comes also from the northern parts of Europe, from Lund University. And we have Professor Pamela Gillies. Well done. Is from the UK, the Glasgow Caledonian University, and Professor Gillies is a medical doctor, public health. Is her subject, which might become handy, if we are a species that we are not on the verge of extinction, but we are slowly coming to become something. So we always can use the trend of public health, at least to protect us. And last but not least, we have Professor Sabine Schindler, and she is from Austria. So both of us are here in charge of the South. As you see, you have been moved to the South, because we need to have balance, not only in gender, but also in geography and in subjects, in expertise. And Professor Schindler is a physicist, which is always a good thing to be. So, well, I'm a physicist, so I need to advertise my background while I still can. I thank you all for being here with us, and we look forward to listen to you. So please, Professor Laxo. In a minute, I'll start talking to you by your first name.
Yes, thank you very much. It's a great honor to have a presentation here, and I have a few notions of organizational change, how to try to make it successful, and where I think maybe also diversity in gender is an asset. And my question is that how to formulate and implement plans for change effectively. An easy way to explain this is that the effectiveness of change is made by 2 components. First of all, you need to provide a good quality of the analysis of the situation and good analysis of the solution you are providing to the situation. But then what is also needed is acceptance of the decision. It does not help however good solutions you have if the community is not accepting it. On the other side, it does not help you if there is a lot of popular support if your solution is not based on a proper analysis. So I would like all of you to remember this very easy formula. Effectiveness of organizational change is made of quality of the analysis and solution you are providing and acceptance of the decision. And then in order to provide that kind of analysis of the situation and to engage people, you have to have certain kind of dissatisfaction with the status quo. So why the situation you have in the organization is not good? What are the problems? And also a kind of sense of urgency, that things are not going well. You need to have that kind of awareness. And then you have to provide a vision where we want to go, so that you motivate the people, that the goals and objectives are easy to understand, and that they are relevant for everybody's own work, what they are doing in the organization, that what you are aiming to is relevant. And that you can provide understandable steps for the change. Now in Tampere, we are merging our university, University of Tampere, with the University of Technology and the University of Applied Sciences. And the reasoning behind this merge is that we think that with a bigger unit, we are more competitive in the future challenges for higher education, and that by combining technology with the multidisciplinary sciences and also with regard to applied sciences, which are more relevant for work life, we can better answer to the global challenges of today, to the complex problems in today's world. So the formula again is easy, that you have to, there are these 5 E's. You have to engage people so that people can participate, and what is important, you have to involve different views. And here I think where being a woman leader matters. Because of this existing gender bias, by being a woman, you bring difference, you bring diversity, you bring different views, which is also encouraging others to express their views. You have to ask for alternatives. You have to encourage people to provide even new, novel, and radical ideas. You have to explore the ideas. You have to think. You have to analyze different alternatives. You might test them. You might eliminate them. And when you make the decision, you have to inform people and you have to justify the decision. Objectives, expectations need to be clear. It would be good if you can provide measures, how you are able to monitor the performance. And then evaluation. You implement your decisions with consistency. You make corrective action if that is necessary, and you also celebrate success. You say thanks to those who deserve it, and if there are lessons to be learned, you take that seriously. And then the round can start again. You engage people, you explore different alternatives, you explain your decisions, and you evaluate whatever you do. And then some hints how to be successful in this. You need good data, you need to present facts. I think face-to-face communication is the most valuable one. You have to provide resources for people to participate. This means time and other kind of help with data, etc. And this cannot be overemphasized. You have to listen. Do not speak too much yourself. Give space for people to express their views. Listen to the opinions. And be ready to change your own opinions. I think that's always healthy, and it's maybe a good sign of leadership that you can change your mind if there are good reasons. But at the same time, you have to be consistent and coherent with values. Threats are also there. There is always bias towards evidence that is consistent with existing beliefs. Opportunism is always there. You might seek for outcomes that are favorable to your own areas, to your own unit, maybe to your own disciplines. You have to be aware of that. There is also always, in a leadership, there is illusion of control. You might try to neglect what is against your own interests. And history and continuity, for instance, in Tampere, where we are merging these universities, there is a lot of discourse about novelty, emerging new university, but at least from Aalto University, from the rector from Aalto University, we learned that it is very important to respect the history and the achievements of the old institutions. So don't go to that kind of discourse of speaking about something new. We are creating new all the time. You have to respect what people have already done. And excellence, of course, at the universities, where you need to put emphasis on research, higher education. You cannot compromise the excellence, even though it is sometimes demanding. And then, as I said, I think that what is the role of women in leadership, I think that it relates to the value of diversity. That you bring different kind of voices to the discussion, and this also relates to the value of fairness, that you are fair towards the whole staff and at the universities towards all students as well. And in the process, commitment is most important. It's more important than a kind of compliance where the orders are coming from the top. And this is also a fact from organizational literature, that if people perceive that the process is fair to reach organizational change, they are also committed, they trust their superiors, and they are giving support for the organizational change. So, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. So, Eva, will you please?
So I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to this panel discussion. It's the first time that I'm here. I'm the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Lund University. I'm a professor of Italian linguistics. And I should have been here with my dear friend Eva Åkesson, who is the Vice Chancellor of the University of Uppsala. She sends her warmest greetings to you, and I really hope that she can be here for some other occasion. Eva Åkesson has been, you could say, a mentor for me, because she was the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Lund University before she moved to Uppsala in 2012, in January 2012. And I think that is what has helped me most, was that she saw me and she helped me up in the organization. You need to have someone who bootstraps you up. So I think that many of the things that Lisa spoke about are very important. Someone who listens and someone who is there and takes the opportunity to bring you forward. I'm now going to take up the position as Vice Chancellor or Rector at the University of Gothenburg from 1st of July. And in our abstract, Eva Åkesson and I said that we were going to speak about our personal experiences of being the first woman who is. And what is my first, what am I first woman of? I'm actually, we have 12 universities with full university status in Sweden, and we have more than 30 institutions. And I will be the first professor from humanities to be a rector of a comprehensive research-intensive universities with a medical school. I think that is interesting times where we have a need to look after so that we do things by the book. When it comes to cheating on research, when it comes to standing up for facts and not alternative facts, so to speak. So I think that with that, I'm also one who has been Deputy Vice-Chancellor under two rectors, two very different rectors. So I was elected Deputy Vice-Chancellor in 2012, and then when the new rector came in 2015, I was also in the race for this position. Why am I saying this? Because I saw what Martine brought up when it comes to how many women there are who are Deputy Vice-Chancellors or Vice-Rectors versus how many who are rectors. I would like to say it's a dead end if you try to become a rector from being a Deputy Vice-Chancellor. It's very, very difficult to be that in your own institution. And for me, doing this twice in my own institution and trying to become rector in 2015, well, I had to opt for something else. So I took Gothenburg, and I'm really happy about that, because I think that sometimes when you're number two, and I want to say this because I think it's very important when you speak about how you proceed in your career, being number two, which you are when you are a vice rector, is always obeying what the rector says. You cannot have your own agenda. So I think that is really important also when you think about your career. When it comes to the situation in Sweden, I was just thinking a little bit about what Krista told us about. Sometimes you feel like, because in the Nordic countries, as also Jesper Simonsen told us, that we are quite advanced in the Nordic countries when it comes to equality in leadership positions. But sometimes it is as if you take 2 steps forward and 1 to the side, as you said, Krista. And I think that is what we can see a little bit in Sweden, but I still think that we are striving towards a good situation all the same. Because in 2014, of the 12 full universities, there were 7 female rectors and 5 male rectors. So that means almost 60%. Then in 2017, from this autumn, there will only be 4 women and 8 men. That can be a chance. That is the way it is. I really hope that it's not that some universities think they've ticked up that box. But I still think that it's very important then to not to just rest on your laurels and actually still strive for promoting women into leadership. And how can you do this? I think it begins, as some have said, very early. It already begins when you choose your subject in school, of course, and you know that. But anyway, I think that when you come to an institution and want to be part of a leadership, you also need to have a network, and then the universities have to have programs for this. Lund University launched a program in 2004 called ACCA in order to increase the women in leading positions at the university, and we invested quite a lot of money for the potential women leaders. Why was this made? Well, the reason was that for the election of deans for our 8 faculties, there were no women. And at the former years, there had been 1 woman who was dean of the Faculty of Engineering. So what was wrong? Why couldn't Lund University produce women deans? So that was how the whole program started, and I was part of that. The first session. This program has lasted for 10 years, from 2004 to 2014. And now we have another development program. During the first years, there were only women in these programs. The last 2 sessions, we also added men into it, and I think that is something which is very important if you want to have some kind of organizational change. Because if you just are you could almost say an elite club with only women discussing, you will still be regarded as that club. Okay, they are doing that. But if you integrate the programs with men, then you can bring this, I suppose, further. So in the long term, I think that the program that we had in Lund, which we invested quite a lot of energy into, and I am the mentor of this program, the result was that from 2009 and onwards, it's a balanced situation when it comes to the deans. So almost half, now it is 4-4, but 3-5 is still good, are female deans. Also, Uppsala has had organized this kind of coordinating programs called FESTA, the Female Empowerment in Science and Technology in Academia, which is also a 5-year international project which involves also universities from Europe. And I think that these are some examples of what we need to do in order to bring organizational change. But I also think that it's very, very important to think about that we have to be kind to each other. We are elite people. We know that we have to fight. We have to have very sharp elbows to get forward. But you have to be kind. And then you should think like Madeleine Albright did, the former Secretary of State of the US. There's a special place in hell for women who don't help other women. And I think that is something that we can all testify, because it's like that. It's sometimes, especially in some areas of our universities, some women say, well, I'm here now, and I'm not letting you in. And that's why I'm coming back to my friend Eva Åkesson and saying that she is from the Faculty of Science, a chemist. And without such help, I wouldn't have been standing here today. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Eva, very enlightening. And now we have Pamela.
Thank you. And this is also my first time here, so it's a great privilege. Thank you so much for inviting me, Madam President. It's great to be here from Scotland. My leadership story starts with my late, much-loved mother, Ella. My mother left school at 15. Her own mother died in childbirth from puerperal sepsis, so she had to leave school at 15. But in 1944, when this picture was taken, she was just 18, and she joined the Women's Royal Air Force because it was the Second World War. And they trained her to be a radar operator. And that opened doors to her. And ever afterwards, she said, well, when I have girls, I'm going to make sure that they are educated. So every Friday night, she dragged me along to this very forbidding building in Dundee in Scotland. And this was the local library. Because we were poor, we had no books at home. We had a Bible, but we had no books at home. But every Friday, we took out 6 books each, and I read all hers as well as mine. And I was first in my family to go to university to read science at Aberdeen. And it was there that I had my first interesting experience of the gender inequalities that face scientists. So I became used to the fact that I would write academic papers and my medical superiors would put their names first on them. That was what we were used to in the 1980s. But when I went for my first lectureship job at the University of Nottingham, it was in 1984, just about to gain my PhD, and I managed to get through to the shortlist, the final 6 shortlist, 5 men and me as 1 woman, although I had been working in this department for many years as a research fellow on a fixed-term contract with no prospect of being able to get a mortgage on my own because I didn't have a permanent job. The night before the interview, the head of department, who was 6'2" tall, charged into my office and said, I would like you to withdraw from the interview panel tomorrow for the lectureship because there's a young lad from Belfast, I'm going to appoint him. So I got on the phone to my mother and she said, stick with it. Even if they don't give you the job, take the opportunity, have a go, and I'll be really proud of you. Well, I got the job, but so did the young lad from Belfast. They appointed both of us. But the head of Department of Epidemiology and Community Medicine, I can't tell you his name, I'd love to, but he was furious and he wanted to humiliate me. So he challenged me to a tennis match. You remember that famous tennis match between Billie Jean King and Bobby Riggs? So he challenged me to a tennis match in front of the whole department. I beat him 6-1, 6-2. Well done. Revenge was sweet. Revenge was sweet. I won't go into the whole road of gaining my Vice-Chancellor's role, but just to say Vice-Chancellor's roles are important roles. All the evidence suggests, wherever you look for evidence in the academy, across Europe and beyond, that there is a gender division of labour, even in the highest echelons of universities, that men do fare better in promotion, more men apply than women, that the academic culture, being inflexible and having long working hours, stops women from coming forward, and that if we're going to support women to proceed, we need to have flexible offers. So in the role, and there is an obvious error on this slide and I'm mortified, but in the United Kingdom only 22% of Vice-Chancellors are female. And a couple of years ago only 15% in Europe were. It's now gone up to 20%. That's still too small a proportion. We all know that. But it's a blooming tough job, as I'm sure all of us can testify to. You have to be robust. This is me with my Chancellor, Nobel Prize winner, Mohammed Yunus. So we determined in the university when I was appointed that we would improve the proportion of female professors in the university. When I joined in 2006, we had a high proportion of female professors because we have a large nursing school. But you can see we've managed to improve that over the last 10 years compared to the UK as a whole. And we've done that with positive promotion policies, not just for women who are seeking to become professors, but across all academic grades. So there was a positive identification of talent, and all of the senior women in the university joined with me in encouraging women to apply. And the results are on merit, but you can see over the years more women have been successful than men, and that is how we've turned around our gender balance. So changing the structure through policies, but implementing those policies vigorously. But then there is a problem, isn't there, in the academy with pay, and there is gender imbalance in pay. So did the changes that we implemented affect pay? Well, they did, which is great to see. If you can see just the bottom line, these are comparable data on hourly pay, but our gender pay gap at the university is 2.9% for professors. It's 5.83% for the UK as a whole. But when I analysed the data by age, that difference completely disappeared. And you can see why. We had more older men in the university. So it's important when you're thinking about gender balance, gender equality, you make sure you analyse your data with as much sophistication as you can manage, as our speaker this morning, Professor Mallow, actually identified. In terms of the overall academic pay gap then, from a young research assistant right through to a professor, again our gender pay gap is less than the national average, and again when I analysed the data in a logistic regression analysis, that disappeared when you actually looked at the age distribution. So controlling for age is important. There is a gender pay gap in my institution still. It is tiny, and it disappears when you analyse by age. What other things have helped us to change the way we think about diversity in the university? Well, this, I'm sure some of you will recognise the Athena Swan Charter for those working in the STEM subjects. And what we found is that, yes, this is necessary, but not sufficient on its own to make these big changes that we're all seeking. Some of the most senior universities in the United Kingdom have had silver membership for 10 years, and their gender gaps are still wide. But it has been important because it's helped us tackle unconscious bias. And we've put all of our leaders in the university through unconscious bias training. That has been really important for us. We've also had family-friendly policies, and what my professors said to me when they reviewed this talk with me, they said, you know, the policies have been so important, not just for us women to have flexibility when we come back from maternity leave, but also for the men. And since we introduced family-friendly policies and involved the men in talking about it, more men have taken up paternity leave than ever before in the institution. So we heard earlier speakers saying, involve the men, they are important, and I think that's very true. But our main leadership foundation mentoring and change programme from women in the United Kingdom is simply for women. And my professor said to me, it's not good enough, Pamela. We've got women mentoring women in our university, but you need to get the men into it as well to change things in STEM. And I think that was a good point. And I agree with Eva, Madeleine Albright's one of my heroes, but there is so often we encounter, especially in science, women who hold back other women. And how do we, as my professor said to me, how do we actually tackle this imposter syndrome? You know, they said it's all very well that we have gender balance in our institution. Half of my executive team is female. My chair of governing body is a woman. So we've got good gender balance. But these, superb female professors were still saying to me, oh, gosh, I don't know how I made it. I don't know if I'm clever enough. So what we now do is we send them on executive training programs at Harvard. In my university, a third of my students come from the poorest of backgrounds. Many of my female professors are like me, first in family from working class backgrounds. And just to go to Harvard for a week on a leadership program, the shoulders are back. Yes, I'm as clever as anybody else. So it has worked. And encouraging our staff to, take those opportunities, go for that competitive fellowship, go for a Royal Society of Edinburgh Academician Award. That's like the British Academy, our highest society award in Scotland. And be role models yourselves. We have absolutely understood that we must embed our values across the institution, and we've been engaged in a programme of cultural change. And we're going to be assessed on how successful we've been by the Magna Carta Observatory, and I think Sybil Noord's going to speak to you tomorrow. Well, we're terrified it's not as good as it could be, but it's so important to test yourself, so we're looking forward to seeing if we're making progress. How can we change the wider context in which we all operate as leaders? I'm sure many of you saw this. How you trivialise female leaders. So a final thought is to say we do have to stand up to this. The media does constantly misrepresent us. I myself have faced it. I'm on the left. Every time the newspaper has a go at me as a female leader, they show me in a ball gown. Every time they challenge some of the male leaders in Scotland, they show them in their academic gowns. So there's no silver bullet. There are many, many actions we must all take. All of them are necessary. None of them individually, I think, are sufficient. But cultural change is possible if you stick with it as a leader, and I remain enthusiastic and optimistic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pamela. Sabine.
Dear colleagues, it's a great pleasure for me to be here, and I'm very happy that I can present you today also some figures about the Austrian universities. Yeah, right. So I like to show you some facts about the Austrian public universities. There are 21 public universities, and all these facts, they are publicly available. So the situation about scientific and research staff, this is basically all people working on research, also people on grant money. You see how the situation is for 3 different years. You see that it is about 2/3 men, 1/3 women, and it basically hasn't changed in the last 3 years from 13 to 15. I have plotted here also for you the glass ceiling index, just to remind you that the definition of the glass ceiling index is the share of female professors to the share of female scientific staff. You see it here in orange is universities, all the universities in Austria, so it is basically 2/3 so there are many more female scientific staff than professors. In blue, you see also the values for the University of Innsbruck, and you see that is not even as good as the Austrian average. So therefore, this is you see that it should be 1, of course, and you see how slow the progress is. This diagram starts in 2012 and ends in 2016. So, and this is basically in all the diagrams that I show you, the progress is so slow, and this is something that is not very encouraging. Also, I would like to show you the diagram of the leaky pipeline. You see here in orange the graph for the female employees, and blue are the male. And you see it starts from students with various degrees, and then as soon as it starts with the staff, you have assistants. Is still relatively high, the number of women, but then it goes down and down. With tenure track positions, lower level professors and full professors. And in 2015, so we had 22.6 female professors, female full professors. In Austria, this shows the diagram now for the different years. So from here you can see, for example, you look at the full professors. You see that from 2012 to 2015, the percentage of full professors increased just from 21.6 to 22.6, so not a lot. The others, the others are also changing a bit here and there, but it is basically that the number of professors is not increasing a lot, which is unfortunately not so good as we would like to have it. And here I show you the newly appointed professors at Austrian universities from 2013 to 2015. And this is in my opinion, this is a diagram that shows that we will keep the same situation for now another 25 years, because the number of female professors is just about 1/3 of the newly appointed professors are female. That means for the next generation, we will still have the same situation. And this is not as good as we had it in Neuchâtel, where we had these encouraging new appointments. In Austria, it is obviously a different situation. Good. Here is also the number of percentage of female students. You see that we have, in general, over 50% of female students. It goes down to a little bit less than 50% when you go to the doctorate. So here we have 45.8% do their PhD in Austria. So this is, well, it is close to 50, but then when you go to the STEM fields, then you see that it is going down a lot. So in blue, now we start with the orange and the brown curves. These are the number of students, of female students in STEM fields in Austrian universities. So you see in STEM we have about 1/3 female students at the beginning, then ignore the diploma, this is an old degree. In master, it goes down a bit in the master, and then surprisingly it goes a bit up for the PhD. In blue, you can see the numbers for the University of Innsbruck, and you see that it is the same as the Austrian average for a bachelor degree. Then, surprisingly, we are lower in the master, but higher in the PhD, and actually we don't know why. This is still not clear. You can see also the time evolution. So in Austria, there is hardly any evolution from 2012, this is the orange line, to 2016, which is the brown line. At the University of Innsbruck, it is a bit getting a bit up, so there is the tendency is at least in the right direction. Good, and I would like to show you also one slide that is not produced by the standard statistics, but as you heard, I'm a physicist, and actually I'm an astrophysicist, and therefore I find also from time to time in astrophysics interesting diagrams that are interesting for other people. And here, some astrophysicists, they have analyzed the citation rate of papers that were published with a first author women or first author men. And, you know, in astronomy, we have to cope with huge amounts of data. So astronomers are very skilled in statistics, and they have all their sophisticated methods, and this was analyzed with very sophisticated means, and they have included various effects. For example, that the citation rate is different in developing countries compared to other countries, and all such things is included in this diagram. And what you see in this diagram is that at the beginning, the citation rate of first author women papers was much lower than papers that were published by men. You see for all the years, for each year, you see here a point. In total, they have analyzed 200,000 articles. And then they show the mean curve. Yeah, this is the green curve here is the mean value, and you see how it increases, but it increases only up to the year 2000 approximately. From then on, it is basically stable, and it remains stable at a level that the citation rate of women papers is about 90%. That rate of main papers. So and this is also something that I find not so encouraging, yeah, that obviously we are getting stuck here since the year 2000. There has been no progress in this respect. Good. So I have read also other articles about such things, and they say, everything is equal now, but I don't think they do it exactly with the same statistical methods as it is done here. So this worries me a bit. Good. What what are we doing at the University of Innsbruck? So maybe I explain a bit why I'm here with two affiliations. So I'm Vice Rector at the University of Innsbruck, and currently I have two jobs. I'm also the Rector at a private university that is called UMIT. It's in Hall in Austria. And so I have, I see two different universities. Innsbruck is a university with 28,000 students, and it is 350 years old, and the private university UMIT has 1,700 students, and it is only 15 years old, and it is specialized, so therefore it's quite interesting, but fortunately from autumn on I will be only at the UMIT, and I can concentrate on one job then. So what are we doing at the University of Innsbruck? We have announced professor positions only for women. This was very interesting, so this is just an internal competition. We have started this with two professorships in STEM fields, and we got very good candidates, and we hope with these two women will get now a good career, and we are announcing now two more professorships also in a bit wider fields. We have established a mentoring program for young female researchers. We have started this last year, and this is partly peer mentoring, also partly with other mentors. And as it was mentioned before, we have here also female and male mentors, and this turned out to be a good thing, so I can recommend this. The number of mentees is about 10, and this is not limited by the number that the university gives, but by the number of applications. So obviously the young females are not aware of all these problems that they will face later on. But we're continuing this, so we have announced this now for the next year. Then we have already for a number of years, we give postdoc positions, so a particular type of postdoc positions for an additional degree that we have in Austria for the Habilitation only for women. This has been also successful already for a number of years. And then we have a law constraint in Austria that the people can have also a certain number of contracts, one after the other, and we don't apply this for certain fellowships that are given by our National Science Foundation just for women, yeah, so that the women have the opportunity to apply for these fellowships even if they had a number of contracts before. And we do a lot of other unofficial things, so I always take care, for example, that the prizes are given, that there is a balance between men and women for all the prizes that we are giving, that there is a balance for all the PhD fellowships that we are giving. So there is really, you can do some things in the background, but in total it is not a lot that we can do. So I think with all these measures, it will take quite a long time until we get all these indices to 100% or to 1, whatever they are. And interestingly, last week I have seen presentations by young people, so they were 16, 18 years old, and they were asked to see the plans for the society until 2030. So they had lots of plans and they saw lots of challenges, but they said, yeah, we don't need to consider the gender problem, but because this will be solved by then. I found this very interesting that they are so optimistic. I have a bit more critical view of this. Thank you.